Good morning, caretakers, and welcome to Caretakers Corner, where we discuss everything that has to do with taking care of our elderly disabled parents, disabled spouses, adult disabled children, and ourselves. My name is CJ, and I am your guide on this journey. And today we are going to continue our series on long-term care. I've done a previous video where I was discussing a friend of mine at work who has been going through just craziness when it comes to getting long-term care for her parents. Her father was in the hospital for about a month. He had to go into long-term care afterwards because he is elderly to begin with. He was already disabled, and spending 1 month not walking and not taking care of himself, all of his muscles atrophied, and he required more care than she could provide. So I think this episode, I'm going to go over some emotional aspects that we have, as caretakers, have to deal with. Starting next week, I will go over financial aspects. There is a lot of different options. There's a lot of different payment options, long-term care options, and that's stuff that we're going to discuss, plus just financial planning. And the whole idea behind this entire series is planning. I have gone over the last couple of years. I went through and I've listened to my old videos on this subject concerning planning for future, going over decisions that you have to make about whether you want to go to a retirement community slash assisted living type facility, whether you want to go to straight into long-term care, living in a multi-generational home. I will link that playlist at the end of the video. So that way, if you want to, you can go through and re-listen to that. Some of the information that I will be going over in these videos, I quickly touch on in some of those videos. These videos will be more of an in-depth discussion because it's crazy on some of the stuff that you have to worry about, some of the stuff you have to think about. I cannot continue to impress upon you all enough how you need to have these discussions and how you need to plan for these events and take those steps now. Because as I said several times, like in the event of a death, in that moment when the emergency takes place, you're number one, you're just not in the mental state to have to deal with these decisions. Number two, if you're having to make these decisions during an emergency situation, you're not getting the best care. You're not going to make sure that the best care is taken because you don't know what it is. You don't know if you're going to get the best financial deal. You don't know if you're going to get to the best facility. All of this has to be planned in advance. So I cannot express enough how much planning for the event of long-term care is important because it takes all sorts of emotional stress off of us as caretakers. And that is what this video is going to be about. Emotional stress of us as caretakers and the guilt that we feel or that our family members cause us to feel. We as caretakers have been taking care of our family member for probably an excessive period of time. Barb took care of her parents for like 30 years on and off. I've taken care of Barb for 15 years now, I think. I took care of my dad for 4. I take care of my mom. I've been taking care of her solid for 1 year, but over the years, it's been about 5, 6 years. I took care of my brother for many years, and when I was younger and my mom had back problems, I had to take care of her for a lot of years. We have a mental frame of mind that we have to take care of them. That is our responsibility or our goal in life. And as I've mentioned before, giving up that responsibility is not an easy thing for us to do. And we can feel guilty over it. As I've also mentioned, there comes a point where we cannot physically take care of our family members. You know, there are some people that they may be able to take care of the family member at that point, but for most of us, we're not going to be able to. Long-term care needs to be done, and we feel guilty about it. We feel like we've let our family members down. We feel like we are giving up, and we feel like we have just not done our job. And we need to not feel that way. And I know that's really hard, especially because usually when these decisions are made, it's because we've had an emergency situation, i.e., when my mom broke her hip, when my friend's dad got so sick and has been in the hospital for a month, we're under emotional stress because of the emergency situation. So our emotions are off the wall. We're not getting good nutrition. We're not getting good sleep. So that causes all the emotions to be even worse. And we're not in the right frame of mind. I would like to think that, hey, my meditation and all that works out great. It doesn't in this situation. I like to think that, hey, I'm getting the nutrition I need and I'm getting the sleep I need. When an emergency situation takes place, you're not getting the sleep you need. You're going back and forth to hospitals. You're trying to get all the paperwork taken care of. You're trying to find a nursing facility for them to go into. All of this is taking place. You're not getting sleep. You're not eating right. And that affects your mental frame of mind, not stability. Let's go right. And we need to be able to make decisions without having it to be an emergency, which is why the planning comes into effect. The planning will help us with not having all the stress on us because we've already got all this planned out. We may not know the exact facility, but we have all the finances planned out. We have all the paperwork where we need it to be. When this happens, we can go, here is our plan. Let's put it into action. Of course, I'm obsessive compulsive, so I am a big planner. And if you have a plan, you can work with it, you know? It takes so much stress off of you as a individual and as a caretaker. And in the case where you've got a parent that possibly could have been on a life or death situation at one point and they've come back from it, that's even worse emotions. So you want to make the best decisions. If you're doing it in an emergency situation, you can't make the best decisions, and that makes you feel even worse because you're and after everything's done, you're like, did I make the best decision? So you're feeling even worse about yourself. You can't be doing that. Planning will help take that away from you. It'll help relieve those negative emotions towards yourself. Now, even if we have negative, even if we don't have the negative emotions about ourselves, sometimes our family members want to make us feel bad. Case in point, if you refer to one of the videos where I did where my mom had to go into rehabilitation, she actually started acting like a child and crying because she had to go to rehabilitation, not even long-term care, just rehabilitation, because she thought I was putting her in a nursing facility forever. And I wasn't. In the case of my friend, initially, her dad was giving her a hard time and making her feel guilty about it. But when they finally got her dad and her mom into a long-term facility where they are together in the same room, living their life, very similar to the way it was at home, her mom started making her feel bad about it and guilt about it, but her dad was fine with it at that point because it had already taken place. So our loved ones can give us this guilt and this, they don't realize how bad that is affecting us. Case in point, my friend, who I keep referring to, has broke down crying way more in the last 2 months than she's probably ever cried in her entire life. It has taken a huge emotional toll and a huge physical toll on her because of all the guilt and pain she's feeling because she feels she's disappointed her family, her mom and dad specifically. She feels that she has disappointed herself in the fact that she has spent all these years being the caretaker for her family. And so it's just it rolls on itself, and you've got to let those emotions out. As I've said in a video before, just go out in the middle of nowhere and scream and get it out. Get into counseling, talk to somebody. This is a grief situation. Your life is changing. Not only are you having to deal with guilt you feel or the disappointment you think you've caused people, you are grieving for the life that you have known for an extensive period of time changing. You've gotten up early every day for how many years? You've made breakfast for your parents. You've come home. You've made dinner for your parents. You're doing their or loved one. You're doing their laundry. You're making sure they get their medicine. Your life is almost entirely loved one dependent specific. And it has been for a period of time. And now your life is changing. Now you're going to have, for lack of a better word, empty nest syndrome, because now you've got a lot of time on your hands that you didn't used to have. And you haven't planned for this. You don't know what to do because this has been your life for possibly decades. In Barbara's case, taking care of her parents and family members had been part of her life almost her entire adult life, her entire teenage life and adult life. She had always been taking care of her mother and her younger sister, and then when her dad became disabled, her dad, and sometimes her nephews. When her parents had to go into long-term care, she didn't know what to do. She felt guilty about it. Her mom made her feel guilty about it. Her dad didn't so much, at least the first time he had to go in. He did, I think, the second time. But Barbara was so entrenched in the fact that this was part of her life that when they went in, we still had to go to the nursing home every day for hours every day. We had to go to the nursing home because that was part of her life and she could not come up with another step to take. So my friend is having this problem because she is always taking care of her parents. So after work every day, she goes to the facility, she sits with her parents, talks with them, and takes care of them. That's not a problem. You know, she's in the early stages. She's not spending all of her days there, but she is spending a good amount of time there. And you got to remember, yes, you still need to go and see your family members every day or every other day or whatever your schedule is, but you are putting them in a place that will provide all that care that you have previously provided for them. And you have a chance to use that time for something for yourself. There comes a point where you got to remember you have to take care of yourself. And that's part of the guilt here. Get over the guilt. Don't be guilty. You're not guilty. You are wanting to make sure your loved ones get the best care possible. And you are at the point where you understand you cannot provide it. You need to make sure they get that care. That is not something to feel guilty about. That is not something to feel disappointed about. You are taking the next step to make sure they can live their best life. That is entirely what we do as caretakers. And we need to understand there comes a point where we cannot do it. We're going to feel guilty. We're going to go through grief. This is one of those spots where I tell you, get into counseling, grief counseling, because even though there's not a death, your life is doing a massive change. And you're going to have to deal with those emotions. You're going to have to come up with I love planning. You're going to have to come up with a plan for how you're going to go forward with all that extra time that you have. All this time you've been devoting to your family, to your loved one, what are you going to do with it? My suggestion, step up your self-care. Go on that vacation. Go to those exercise classes. Go to the gym. Instead of hurrying home every day to take care of the family, start going to the gym. Then when you're done with the gym, go visit your family at the facility. Let them know that this is their new home and that you will be visiting them at their new home. You got to remember, in most cases, you were not always their caretaker. You would go and visit them. You had your home, you would go visit them at their home. And you got to remember, you're kind of back to that situation where you can go and visit them at their home. One part of the way to help with your guilt is to help them feel like it is their home. Now, most facilities will allow you to bring their personal items in to the facility and kind of set it up in a way that they feel comfortable. They can have their own clothes, their own decorating stuff in the room, make it a home for them. That way they feel better about the situation and that helps relieve your guilt. And that's really what this whole first video is about. We're going to feel guilty. We're going to feel disappointed in ourselves. We're going to feel angry at ourselves. We're going to go through grief. That is what this first part is a process of. And unfortunately, we're going to go through all of this. I think it's like 33% of the time. No, I'm sorry, 66% of the time, we will be going through this in an emergency situation. Only 33% of people out there plan for long-term care. And that's why we have this series. So I hope this has really helped you. The next video in this series is where we're going to start talking about different ways to plan and to have this conversation. It's a really important conversation, and I cannot stress how much planning for long-term care is important. I know that I didn't realize until recently how important it was. And I've even done videos over the last few years about planning for long-term care. But I was looking at it from a kind of housing type situation and not from an actual financial and care situation. And what my friend has been going through has really opened my eyes to what all we really need to be thinking about and doing. So I hope this video has helped, and I hope you tune in for the rest of the videos. I will put in the links or the little cards at the end, the playlist for that I've previously done over choosing different care facilities or living arrangements. And then I hope you join in for the rest of the series. And I hope it really helps you. If you have any questions, comments, or even suggestions, please put it in the comment section. I do read the comments. Sometimes I don't get them and respond to them immediately because of my schedule, but I do read and reply to all of the comments. Be sure to like and subscribe and share. And I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next Sunday. Love you guys. Bye bye.